Okay, we're
Sir,
now recording.
I have a question about this immunity.
Yes.
This immunity can, I think for my opinion, can give the, how to say it, those people power to commit many crimes or something like that, right?
That's
If they have,
possible. However, if you're caught in flagrante means if you're caught while you're doing it. So if I'm in Congress and the police catch me with a knife stabbing someone, I don't have immunity. If you're caught while you're doing the crime, you don't have immunity. However, if you're just accused of the crime, like the mayor in Brazil was, she has immunity. It can be taken away. The reason for this is when we put people in public office, we want to make sure that they are not pressured to make decisions. So if you cannot be, let's say she could be arrested. Now, what if the chief of police wanted her to pass a law that says nobody from Mexico can enter Brazil? What if the chief of police wants that? And so he says to her, listen, if you don't pass this law, I'm going to arrest you. Now, she could be pressured by people who have a lot of power. So to avoid this pressure, we say she can't be arrested. Nobody can pressure her. It's the same reason that when you become a Supreme Court justice, you have that job for the rest of your life, so that no one can pressure you to try to give you something that to make you change your mind or to make a decision in the way they want you to. It's questionable because, as Jordan said, it leads to an abuse of power. Absolutely. However, at the same time, it avoids possible corruption by undue influence. And we're going to talk a lot about undue influence when we get into contracts, because in contracts, that's really where people pressure each other. So we're not going to get into that right now. Okay, so what I'd like to do is let's start by talking about the quiz. Make sure there are no questions about that. That's pretty easy this week. Then let's talk about the homework, and then let's get into today's lesson, which was Introduction to the Law. I have now put up on Blackboard the PPTs and the homework and the quiz and everything for this week, and I put it up for next week, because today we're going to start our first really big subject, which is torts. I think we'll be able to finish Introduction to the Law pretty quickly. But let me share my screen and let's start with the quiz to make sure that you guys know how to answer that. So sometimes the quiz is a little easier, sometimes it's a little harder. This week is very easy. So tell me, can you please tell me, Carlotta, what's the difference between civil and common law? Carlotta?
Yeah, sorry, the mic was off. So, civil and common law? Oh.
Oh, this is taking too long. This is an easy question. Subhan, tell me, what's the difference between civil and common law?
Sorry, sir, I was not here.
Yeah, Jody, what's the difference?
The civil law is coming from the government.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes, and where does common law come from?
From the citizen, like norm.
Not citizens.
I think created by a legislator, right?
That's civil law. Civil law is created by the legislature or the government or the Congress or the parliament. It's just different in different countries what they call it. Another way to say this is it is statutes. And I said, you need to know this word, right? Statutes are, and another way to say this, it is written law. It was written by the government first. So what's common law?
Common law is made by precedents.
Okay,
It's
so
like
what is precedent?
It's I don't. In simple words, it's like decisions made previously that
made by who?
By court.
by court.
Made by judges.
Yes, court decisions, or we could
Court.
also say it is judge-made law.
Judge made the law.
Because this law is not the law of the country yet. First, the judge will listen to the story of the case, and then the judge will make a decision. Then the government will take that decision and they will write it into a statute. So common law countries do have statutes, and civil law countries do have court cases, right? All the countries have everything. It's just a matter of which one comes first. In a civil law country, the government writes the law first. In a common law country, the judge makes the decision first. Which system does China use? Yes, Florian. You have to turn on your mic.
Civil law.
Correct. And give me an example of a country that uses common law.
England
Sure. Most
and
of what,
America.
yeah, most of what we consider to be the Western countries tend to use common law.
Except France.
Except France. Yes, that
Yeah.
is true. France has a very interesting legal history which uses the Code Napoleon. And the Code Napoleon comes from the Code of Hammurabi, way back, really old law that was carved in stone on a giant obelisk, like a very tall pyramid. And that is very old, very traditional law. France is a very traditional country in terms of their law. Very, very strict and strong law, though. Okay, so number two, how do common law countries use this process of precedent? We did this last week. Harry, can you help us understand how do common law countries use the process of precedent?
Is it just like they take like previous cases
Yes.
to make like a bias judgment?
So what do the lawyers do with the previous cases?
I'm not sure.
Anybody know? Amar?
They want the case to be on point.
Okay,
the-
so what does on point mean?
Mean it's similar decision
Or
Similar to-
what's the opposite?
or distinguish.
Distinguishable.
Distinguishable. That's different.
So that's the idea. Though in Western common law, the lawyers will argue that the case today is similar to this case. You know, throughout this course, we're going to look at a lot of cases. Last class, we looked at 4 cases. The first one we looked at was the case, what was it called? Where a kid, his grandfather promises him money if he stops drinking and smoking and saying curses, Hamer v. Sidway. We looked at that case of Hamer v. Sidway. Now that's an old case. That's from 1891. However, let's say that today, Amar, you had a contract with your rich uncle, and your rich uncle promised you money. If you, let's say you're a writer. Okay, this is where it commonly happens. Amar, you're a talented writer, and your rich uncle promises, you know, Amar, just take a year off of school. You don't need this university. You need to write. You're a writer. And your uncle says he'll take care of you. But then, what if your uncle is sick? He's in the hospital and he can't pay you. So there's somebody else who's in charge of his money, maybe his wife. And his wife says, Amar, we're not going to pay you. Go to school. Now, what could you do if you want to sue to get that money? If I was your lawyer, I would say, this case, Amar's case, is like Hamer v. Sidway from 1891. It doesn't matter that that's more than 100 years old. Today's case, Amar's case, is like that case. And I would go to court and say, in that case, in 1891, they gave the money to the grandson. And just like that result, you should give the money to Amar. That's on point. I would say this case from the past is on point with today's case. Now, another lawyer, the lawyer that represents your aunt, would say, no, Hamer v. Sidway, that case from 1891 is not like today's case. They would say it's different. It's different because that case was about something good for him to not drink or smoke or gamble. Today's case is about Amar being a writer, and that's very different. And me and this other lawyer would just argue cases back and forth. Each of us might come with 30 cases or more and say, it's like this case, it's like that case, it's like this case, and we just go back and forth. That is the process of stare decisis. Okay, the process of precedent is when two lawyers argue by looking at cases from the past. Are there any questions on that? That's really important because that's how I'm going to test you on this class in general. I'm going to expect you to understand this process, that when I want you to look at a case,
you need proof, like,
you need
you
evidence.
need a proof or written from your uncle, like, you know, an agreement between you and him.
Sure.
Because
So
how
that's-
can you prove like uncle will give you the money?
Well, let's say that you and the
He
uncle
told you
had a
that.
written contract.
Yeah, if you have a written contract, then it's okay.
Well,
Isn't it?
having the written contract doesn't make it automatically okay. There's one side, which is evidence, and there's another side, which is the law. Just because your uncle made a contract, what if he said, Amar, I'm going to give you $10,000 a month. I promise. Because I want to support you to be a writer. You know, do whatever you want. Go to school, don't go to school, I don't care. But I'm just going to give you money. We talked about this last week. Is that a good or valid contract? Anybody remember from last week? The rule of consideration. I didn't ask you to memorize it, but does anybody remember? Ploy, do you remember?
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Microphone.
Hey, Ploy.
Can you like repeat? Sorry, the internet just like very slow.
Ploy, if I say, let me make it a simple example. I say, Ploy, I'm going to give you my bicycle. Okay? And I write a contract. I write a contract on a piece of paper. Ploy, I promise to give you my bicycle. Signed, David. And you sign your name also. Do we have a contract?
I would say yes.
No.
Feeling like
We
no.
do not. Why not? Somebody tell me why there's no contract.
But sir, I have a question. How about if it's like signed between the two like parties, like from my uncle and me, and
Wait,
I went
let me
to the,
continue
like,
with let me continue with my example with Ploy first.
I think. Can I say something?
Yes. Why don't I have a contract with Ploy? I want this answered.
Because Ploy must give you something valuable
Correct.
in exchange for the
Okay,
money.
so let's make sure we understand that. Making a promise to someone means nothing in the law. It means something in life if you make promises to people and break them, but in the law, it means absolutely nothing. Making a promise. Evidence doesn't matter. If you make a promise to someone, they have to give you something. Promises cost money or something of value. So if Amar's uncle promised to give Amar $10,000, if Amar is not giving something to his uncle, there's no contract. Now, if Amar is giving up his right to go to school, his right to drink alcohol, his right to smoke cigarettes, a legal right, that's something valuable. But you have to give up something, and evidence is a whole other side of the law. What I'll teach you guys about evidence, but more, I need to teach you these basic rules first. So we all understand the concept of stare decisis, also known as precedent. Yes? Lawyers go back and forth and look at cases from the past and say those are different or those are similar to cases today. Question number 3. Jordan, what are the two sides in a case? Got to unmute yourself. Got to unmute yourself.
Yes, yeah. The two sides of the case is plaintiff and defender.
Good. Who is the person who sues someone, who starts the case?
Plaintiff.
Good. Crystal, how many levels of court are there?
3 levels.
Good. Why is there more than one level?
Because whoever who lost in the trial court, they can appeal to the higher one.
Why do we need that?
To ensure fairness, I guess.
Okay, sure. Also because at the trial level, the judge will hear hundreds and hundreds of cases, maybe every week. The judge is very general. Now, as we go up to appeals court and Supreme Court, the judges are much more trained and specialized. So they might hear a case that is very, very complex, constitutional law or business law or contract law, something that we don't expect the trial judge to have the time to really look at complex things like that. Number 5, in the case of Popov versus Hayashi, the plaintiff argued that the case of Pearson v. Post is on point. Now, we already kind of explained what this means, but Junkyo, can you explain, what does this mean? We just said this like a minute ago. What does it mean to say this case is on point? These are the key words, on point. What does that mean?
So it's similar to a case like before. So the plaintiff gives an example that a judgment made like before.
Sure. So the plaintiff is saying that this case today, Popov versus Hayashi, is similar to this case in the past of Pearson v. Post. Is that clear, everybody? Because that's something we are going to talk about again and again. Similar to equals on point. And when I say similar to, I mean similar to a court case from the past. Equals on point with the case today. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Are there any questions about this quiz? Good. Write it up and submit it on Blackboard by Wednesday.
Oh.
Cool.
I have a question.
But
yes.
How does all the lawyers remember all the cases? Like if they need to file a similar case, or you have a system in place to search which one is the most similar one?
Well, lawyers use a special search engine called LexisNexis, which is very, very expensive. It's like Google for lawyers. So there is, just like you might use Google Scholar when you're looking for academic articles, we use LexisNexis when we're looking for court cases, and it has all of them back to the year 1500. So that's how we find them. Some cases are just extremely famous, like the ones we're going to learn in this class, and all lawyers know those cases. Then you go to court and you bring a bunch of cases with you, the ones that you want to argue. That's really about your strategy. You don't need to memorize hundreds and hundreds of cases. By the time people graduate law school, you do know hundreds and hundreds, but after that, they're all in books, they're all on the internet. Really, it's about your strategy, your story. You will see, everybody, that this week on your video links, I also put the 2 links for the coursework video. So I'm going to give you the coursework. I think we'll go over it next week. I'll put it up this week. I'm almost done writing it, but I already made the video. I kept it pretty similar to last year's. So the video is already online. You can watch the video for this week's class, for next week's class, which is torts, and there are 2 coursework videos. That should give you an understanding of what I want. It will be an essay. And so in a day or 2, I'll put it up on Blackboard. You can read it, and then I hope you'll watch the videos this week. I know it's a lot of videos to watch, But the earlier you start the coursework, the better. Because starting next week, part of your homework is going to be, I want you to write this first part of the essay, bring it to class. Now, if you don't, okay. I mean, I'm not grading you on writing each part, I'm grading you on the final product. But if you write the part, you can ask me questions about it and it will make your life a million times easier. Because I've separated I've done this for 10 years. I've separated exactly what part I want you to write. Most students write a pretty long paper. I'll try to keep it a little shorter this year. But in last year, most of the papers were like 17 or 20 pages. So they're not short papers. You can't write a 3 or a 5-page paper. But as long as you do it in parts, it'll all make sense. Okay, so that was the quiz. Let's talk about the homework. So this week for homework, I had asked you to look at 2 cases, which we're going to talk about when we get to them today, Donaghy v. Stevenson and Caparo v. Dickman. And I asked you to read McIntyre chapter 1, and I said next week will be McIntyre chapter 8. I think let's wait on these because these are torts cases. So let's finish up today's lesson. Unless anybody has a question right now, I'd rather do today's lesson and then talk about torts when we get to it. There's no problem with that. Okay. Good. So this week I had asked you to watch the videos for Introduction to the Law. I'm not actually sure I put that up. I mean, I put it up now, but I don't know if the videos for this were up before. So last week, we started talking about this idea of malum in se versus malum prohibitum, if you remember. Someone tell me, what does malum in se mean?
Can I answer this?
Yes.
Yeah, malum in se is that something that is like, we know exactly that we cannot do it, like burning somebody's house, doing something, yeah. It's logic, something that we cannot do it there.
Well, you can, you just shouldn't.
Yeah, but
you can burn someone's house.
Yeah, but we know that it's not good. That's without the law. We know that's not good.
Okay, good. Without the law, we still know it's not good. How do we know?
Because if somebody burning your house, you will not be happy about it. So it's not good for you to do for somebody else.
Okay, so that's sort of the rational answer, the logical, rational answer. A lot of people, the answer is God. God told us. That's how we know, right? So there are kind of 2 answers to that question. Some people say God, some people say rationality. They're both legitimate answers. Malum prohibitum is the opposite. It's something you shouldn't do because the law says don't do it. And that's kind of where we got to last week. So let's talk about some crimes that are malum in se or malum prohibitum. Tell me, Amar, stealing someone's book or movie using a copyright, do you think that's malum in se or malum prohibitum?
This is malum prohibited.
So it's okay. If you wrote a book, it's okay for somebody to steal it and just put their name on it.
No, you have to put the like the author name.
Well, but that's my question. Is it wrong, like naturally wrong,
It's wrong.
or is it just wrong because the law says don't do it?
It's naturally wrong, like you're taking somebody's
Okay, so it's malum in se.
idea, isn't it? Yeah, malum.
Well, I mean, these are questions of opinion, you know, but I agree, it's malum in se. What about gambling? Jody, what do you think? Is gambling ethically, morally wrong?
Malum prohibitum.
You'd say it's malum prohibitum. Anybody think gambling is? Anybody think gambling is malum in se?
I think it's malum in se, sir.
Why?
Because like you're gambling, you're putting everything on risk for no reason. Like you can lose everything in a game or something.
Well, sure, but it's your stuff.
Even though, like, I think it's wrong for me. Like.
Sure, a lot of people agree. What about drug use, Aruni? Is it malum in se or malum prohibitum to smoke pot?
I think it's malum prohibitum.
What about to do a stronger drug like heroin or methamphetamine?
Still prohibitum.
Okay. What about to sell it?
That's malum in se.
Well, but then how are you going to get it to do it? You know, in America, it's usually, in a lot of places, it's not illegal. It's never illegal to be high. It's just, and it's not illegal to use drugs. It's illegal to have them. So if there was a way to use them without having them, then you could be high. But the legal game there.
To get high.
What about prostitution? Ploy, what do you think? Is prostitution malum in se or malum prohibitum?
I think it's malum in se.
It's wrong because it's wrong. Anybody think it's malum prohibitum?
I think it's malum prohibitum.
Carlotta, why?
Me too.
Because it's not like it only affects the person that's doing it most, and it's been around so long. It's just part of humanity.
I mean, in some ways, it's very similar to gambling. The same argument, this belongs to you. You make a decision what to do with your stuff. Whether it's your money or your body, it's yours. And how does the government get to tell you what to do with your stuff? I mean, it's a similar argument there. Other people would say the whole industry is flawed because nobody does it because they want to. You know, everybody's forced into it and therefore it's automatically in se. These are not right answers or wrong answers. You know, the point is to try to figure out for ourselves. Ping Ping, what about driving without a license? Is that morally wrong?
No, I don't think so.
What about building a house without a license?
That's wrong.
Well, then what's the difference? If you don't have a license to drive, you could still kill people.
Yeah, but it's not like very risky, like building up a house.
Okay. So you would say the licensing for driving is a little more just the government requires it. Where building a house, it's actually real education that you need. Okay. What about, Harry, paying your taxes?
I guess I'd say prohibitum.
So it's okay to not pay taxes?
I don't think it's okay, but I mean, prohibitum just means that there's a law, isn't there, that you should pay your taxes. So
well, prohibitum means the only reason to do it is the government says you have to.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
So it's okay to not pay taxes, as if there was no law.
I think if people had a choice, they probably wouldn't.
So there's a famous case in America. There was a city that tried this. And what they said was, we are going to have a tax system where you just pay what you want. Now, everybody has to pay for certain things like the sewer or the post office. You know, there are a couple things we all need to pay for. But after that, if you want to pay for the roads, you can. But if you don't pay, you can't use the roads. So pretty much everybody paid for the roads. Most people paid for hot water. Everybody paid most things. One woman chose not to pay for the fire department. And her house burned down. And the fire department came to make sure that the house on her right and the house on her left didn't burn because they paid taxes. This was a big news story. And she was there crying, screaming, I'll pay you anything. Save my house. And they stood there with water watching her house burn. And after that, the city changed their mind and said, no, everybody has to pay taxes. We can't have a system because taxes are necessary for society, even though they may be used in a corrupt or at least very inefficient way. But it's possible. Okay, so, you know, we're talking about this idea of malum in se versus malum prohibitum today. And I don't know, did you guys watch the video for today's class? Did I put this up? I kind of think I didn't. Is that a yes? No? Somebody tell me.
I checked it for like 10 minutes, but I didn't finish it.
Okay, did anybody watch this video?
Yeah, I watched it.
Okay, one person. One person?
Yeah,
Oh, you guys. All right. So I'm going to go through this stuff, but when I put up videos, I don't expect to have to go through everything. You know, like I expect you'll watch them. So today we can kind of go through stuff, but I'm never going to spend too much time on it in this Zoom tutorial. This is a tutorial. So there are some things we need to know. So first of all, we need to know what a law is. You know, is a law something that the government writes down in a book, even if they don't do it? Or is a law something that is enforced? You know, what is a law? So we have this definition of a law. A law is these two things. It's a set of rules that people in society agree to follow. Now, no one ever asked you, do you want to follow the law, right? So what does it mean to say you agree? How did you agree? You implicitly agreed. You implicitly agreed. What does that mean? Anybody know? What does it mean to say you implicitly agreed?
It's expected or implied that you have already agreed.
Sure. So you use things, right? Even today, all of you used electricity. That is governed by law. There are codes that say how your houses were constructed, how the electricity was put in. By using that electricity, you've agreed to follow the law of whatever country you're in. That's it. You use the water. You use the toilets. You live in a house. You're wearing clothes. If you want to not follow the law, you have to go find a mountain, make your own clothes, raise your own animals, raise your own food. Don't use anything from society. As long as you use things that our society produces, you have agreed to follow the law of whatever country you're in. So you've agreed to follow this law. Now, is the country that you're in developed? When we say a developed country, we have a very specific definition in law. We call this the rule of law, and there are two rules. If you have both of these, then your country is developed. So we started this class by talking about parliamentary immunity, and this case that Nicola brought up in Brazil. And when Nicola wrote to me about this, he mentioned, does this mean it's not developed? So I said, we're going to talk about this now. What is developed? So first of all is equality before the law. Florian, are all people equal?
Yes.
Really?
By the law, wait. Yes. By the law, yes.
Do you think rich people have it easier than poor people?
I said by the law. It's like according to the law, yes. But physically, we're not the same. Financially, we're not the same. And by ability, like mentally, we are not the same, neither.
And if I'm rich and you sue me, I can bring a team of lawyers. And if you're poor, maybe you have no lawyers, and I will probably win. Now, that's not fair, right?
Yeah.
However, sorry?
No.
Somebody's. Okay, so that's not fair. However, if a country is developed, what equality means is you are allowed to use the law. We cannot say only men can go to court, or only people of a certain color can go to court, or only people who own land can go to court. Anybody can go to court. Is the law fair? No, it is not. It's absolutely not fair. It favors some groups over other groups. It is written by a certain group of people and it benefits those people who wrote it. It is not fair. However, everybody can go to court. Now, what if you're really poor and you can't pay? There's something called informa pauperis. You don't need to know it, but in the form of a pauper. Informa pauperis is Latin, and it means if you're really, really poor, you do not have to pay the court fee. There is a fee to sue someone. It's not that much money. Maybe it's $100 or $150 in America, but it is still money. So anybody can go to court. That's equality. That's all it means. No arbitrary and prerogative powers. That means that every decision that is made by a judge must come from somewhere besides the judge's opinions. The judge can never use his or her opinions. I can't decide that you win because you're my cousin, or you win because you're pretty, or you're handsome, or you're going to give me $1,000. You know, it has to come from a legal reason. As long as a country has these two things. Now, China has number one. Everybody in China can sue in court. Number two, the big cities in China have that. Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, Guangzhou. The judges are fair. Of course, if you have more money, you have more influence. That's true everywhere. However, in smaller villages and smaller cities and towns, it is not fully under the rule of law. It does depend on who you know. And a lot of places are like that. So arbitrary means that the judge can decide something rather than using the law. We can't have that. Prerogative says that if you are a high rank, you're very rich, or you're the president, or you're the vice president, or you're the mayor, then you get a special privilege. And in a developed country, we can't have that, except, as we said at the beginning of class, parliamentary immunity, because the government gives that to people and the government can take that away. But generally speaking, in traditional China, under Confucian law, there were two levels of people, and there was completely different law for the low people and the high people. So that type of system is not developed. It does not have the rule of law. So there has to be equality. Everybody gets to have their day in court. Everybody can go to court, and no arbitrary powers. Legal decisions must come from a recognized source. The first time that this became important in the law was in around 1215, when we talk about the Magna Carta. So the Magna Carta was written in England, and it talked about this big idea that the king cannot be the god of the law. Before this, whatever the king said was law. And in the Magna Carta, what the people said was a judgment against a person should have, and we're going to see these words again and again, due process. Due process is very important in the law. It means, for example, the police cannot arrest you without telling you why. In China, there is no due process. If the police want to come to your dormitory and take you to jail, they do not have to tell you why. They can hold you in prison or in jail for up to 20 days, and they don't have to tell you why. That is no due process. Most developed countries, pretty much all developed countries, have due process, which means they must follow the law. But China is a police state. So their rules follow that the government can make these kind of rules. But it said no free man shall be taken or imprisoned or in any way destroyed or exiled or anything except by the lawful judgment of his peers or the law. Only your peers, which is the jury. Jordan, what's a jury? Yeah? Florian, what's a jury?
Jury is the person that who judge people.
A group of person.
How many?
I would say 3.
Okay, it could be 3, it could be 5, it could be 7. Often in criminal cases, it's 12.
12.
Usually it's 12.
It's
Any
like
questions?
the jurisdiction, right? The people who go to another room to say
yes,
guilty or not guilty. Yeah.
Yes.
But this is
usually 12 of those people. And that comes from ancient law where Jesus had 12 apostles.
Oh, yeah.
There's also 12 hours in the clock. There's 12 months in the year. 12 is a very important number. So there's 12 people in this jury.
Sir, what if all of them against you, even though you are not guilty? If they against you,
you can be killed. Oh. If they're all against you. I mean, that's the point. If 12 people all agree beyond a reasonable doubt, 99%, they agree you did it, you're going to prison. And sometimes it does happen that years later, They use DNA evidence and find out, oh my God, you're innocent. That happens. It happens a lot.
Yeah, that happened. I saw the video one time about
It
this.
does.
Yeah.
And also happened the contrary, right? Like you commit the crime, but they don't think you committed. So
Well,
they really,
it depends
like with,
on the crime.
Even recently, I saw
O.J.
that video.
Simpson case, you know?
So okay, we're getting a little off topic, but just to address this, because it is useful information, just to address this, because now we're talking a little about evidence. Different crimes or court cases require a different level of evidence. If you want to send someone to prison, you need to have what's called beyond a reasonable doubt. And that means 99% sure this person is guilty. If you want to make someone pay money, you do not need that level. You need what's called a preponderance of the evidence. It doesn't matter what it's called, but that's about 90% to make someone pay money. And for different levels of punishment, there's different requirements. If you go to court and you're in the jury, the judge will explain to you, the group of people, here's the requirement for today's case. You know, if you trespass, you come onto my land without permission, you don't need 99%. Now, if you get sued, generally, it is the government's job to prove you are guilty. You do not have to say anything. You can sit there silent. You don't need to say anything. The government needs to prove you did it. So a lot of times when someone is actually guilty, but they did not go to jail or prison, that's because the government couldn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. If there is any doubt, 1% doubt, we cannot send someone to prison. Of course, this is very, very aspirational. In a perfect world, it would be like this. But of course, juries do have stereotypes and biases and preconceptions.
Sir,
okay. Yes.
What if you find not guilty and then after they imprison you for like a few many years and then they find out that you are not guilty? Will they compensate you?
Yes, you can be compensated if you were found guilty of a crime you did not commit. That's called false imprisonment. But it depends. Sometimes it really depends. Was it actually a reasonable mistake? Let's say all the evidence showed that you committed a crime and they sent you to jail for 5 years. And then afterwards, Crystal came out and said, I saw the truth and actually it was not Jordan. And we say, Crystal, why did you wait 2 years? And she said, whatever her reason is. Well, that's not the jury's fault. So in that case, even though it sucks for you, because you did go to jail for 2 years, it's not the jury's fault. Yes.
Did you heard about the Caliph brother cases in New York City? You never heard of it?
This is the kid who was picked up and they put him in jail. Yeah,
exactly.
For the backpack, yeah.
In Rhode Island for 3 years.
Right. So
I saw it on Netflix.
Yeah, I know. And he came. So the story, very quickly, there was a kid named Caliph Browder. Is that his name?
Yeah, that's his name.
He was walking on the street and the police stopped him and said they wanted to search his backpack. And they put him in a police car. They brought him to jail. So when you go to jail, you're not guilty yet. Jail is just a place they hold you until you go to court. Mm-hmm. If you have money, you can pay money and then you can usually leave jail as long as they believe that you'll come back. If they say you are a flight risk, that means you might not come back. Then they could say, we don't care, no money, you have to stay here. He didn't have money and he was a kid. So they kept him in jail, but it wasn't just jail. They put him in maximum security in a very, very terrible prison, this jail part. And they left him there for 3 years. And I'll tell you, that is not uncommon. Waiting 1 to 3 years to go to court is not uncommon. That's how long it takes. You have money, you can hire a good lawyer and I will move your thing faster. You don't have money, you just have to wait for the public lawyer who's very, very busy and very overwhelmed. Law takes a long time. You might be in jail for a very long time. And this kid was 18, something like that, younger. He was now in jail with, remember, in prison, they separate different levels of crime. Violent crime, non-violent crime, drug-related crime. In jail, they do not. You're all together with everybody. So he was there with people who committed very serious violent crimes. It was a terrible experience for him. He was finally let out and he killed himself afterwards. And it's a tragedy. And it is an indictment of the American legal system. The American legal system has very serious problems. You know, every country does. But this was a horrible case. It's good that there are stories about it. This is where all of this defund the police comes from. And we can talk a little more about criminal law when we get into torts, but let's get through today's lesson so we can get into torts, because torts will be our next thing we'll start today. So after the Magna Carta, we jump forward, you know, quite a few hundred years to the Federalist Papers, where this idea of the rule of law became even more powerful. And what the Federalist Papers said is, look, if men were angels, we wouldn't need law. There was a very famous judge named Oliver Wendell Holmes, and he said, law is written for the bad man. You guys are good people. I'm a good person. We don't need the law. I'm not going to burn down your house. I'm not going to do that stuff, but the bad man will. And the law is not written for you or me. It's written for the bad man. You know, and so we have to make sure that the government can control the bad man, but then how do we oblige the government to control itself? Who watches the watchers? That's the challenge. And that's what the problem is right now with Chinese law is nobody watches the watchers. So this idea of the rule of law is that if one person like the king can decide what is law, then any man can. And this means first chaos and then tyranny. There are two kinds of law we're going to talk about in this class, private and public. Private law is most of what we do in this class. Private law means person v. person. Okay, and I do need you to know that. Where's my righty thing? Here. Person versus person. Or person versus business, or business versus person. We'll get to this later in the class, but a business is a person. Apple is a person. Nike is a person. Reebok is a person. Sony is a person. Amazon is a person. And I'll tell you, these people are some of the strongest, most powerful people in the whole world, and they have no soul. And it is actually terrifying when you really learn what this means, that Amazon is a person. Jeff Bezos is a person too, but Amazon is a person. It can own land in this world. It can make contracts. It can do things. Very, very scary. Tesla is a person. That's private law, is person v. person, person v. business, anything like that. And that's most of what we talk about in this class. Public law is government v. person, or person v. government. When you sue America, or when America sues you. You cannot sue China. Nobody has ever been able to sue China. China can sue you, but you can't sue China. Do not try. So what is criminal law? Criminal law is public, right? When we talk about criminal law, we're talking about the government. This is what the government says you can do and you can't do. So what's the big difference between criminal law and civil law? We already talked about civil law and common law, but civil law has two meanings. Civil law could be written by the government, civil law versus common law, or civil law could be the opposite of criminal. So with criminal, what is the punishment? Can someone tell me? If you are found guilty of a crime, what's the punishment?
Jail.
Yes. The punishment is you lose your freedom. They take away your freedom. Now, if you are found guilty of civil law, not criminal law, what do they take away? Money.
Yeah, money.
So if I sue you for civil law, for breaking a contract, you're not going to jail. Nobody's going to jail. That's private law. It's about money, usually. Now, it could be about some other things, and we'll learn this in this class. Let's say that I make a contract with Harry. Harry, your family produces wine. Okay, you produce wine, you have a vineyard. And I make a contract with Harry to buy 10 cases of his very expensive good wine this year. And then Harry breaks the contract with me. Now, of course, I could sue Harry for the money, but I could also sue Harry to get that wine. Harry, why could I sue you to get that wine and not just the money? Any idea?
Not sure.
Let me make the example easier. Harry, you are a painter. And I make a contract with Harry that Harry will paint. Where'd you go? Where'd you go, Harry? Did you disappear? Oh, there you are. Harry, you're a famous painter. And I make a contract with you to pay you $10,000 to paint a portrait of me. Okay? And then you decide you're very busy. Or let's say you even paint it. You paint the portrait. And then you look at it and you say, my God, this man is handsome. I want to keep this in my house. And I say, no, we made a contract. Now, one of the #1 rules of contracts is contracts can always be broken. If I sue Harry for breaking the contract, of course I can get my money back, my $10,000. But I don't want the $10,000. I want the painting. I can get the painting. Why?
According to the contract, this is one of your rights. It's like you own it by the contract.
Well, it's not always by the contract. Harry, what do you think? Why can I get this painting?
Because it was your first interest.
No, it's that it's unique. It doesn't matter, Harry. What if you love the painting and you're a rich painter and you say, David, I'm sorry I broke the contract. Here's your $10,000 and here's another $1 million. Can I take that $1 million and go buy the same painting from someone else? Really? There's more than one?
If you want, you can.
How? How can I buy another Picasso? How can I buy another Degas?
It's a copy, like a copy.
I don't want a copy of a Picasso.
The original, you can't. Unless
Well, exactly. That's the point.
Yeah.
You can't buy, if I made a contract with Harry to buy his Monet or Renoir or Picasso, I don't want a copy and I don't want $1 million. We're both rich people. I have the money. You have the money. I don't want the money. I want the Picasso. And if we made a contract for something unique, now I can get, so it could be for civil, it could be the money or something unique. And I made this example of wine. Anything that comes from the earth is unique. That's why some mountains are famous for growing tea, and some vineyards are famous in France for growing wine. You can't just grow those grapes anywhere. There's some land that has unique properties. It's unique. So I said before that when a judge makes a decision in a developed country, this decision has to come from somewhere. And the decision can come from a few different places. We call these the sources. I said decisions can't be arbitrary. They have to come from somewhere. So where do decisions come from? We would say decisions must come from a source. It can't just be because you're my friend or because you're my cousin or because you paid me money or because you're my husband or wife. You know, I have to have a place as a judge that the decision came from. These are the 6 places that law can come from. It can only come from these 6 places. Law must come from one of these places. All judgments come from one of these places. Number 1 is common law. Crystal, what does common law mean?
Common law is come from, it's court decisions.
Good.
Come from precedents.
Good. That's all I want you to know. Court decisions. Number 3. Nicola, what are statutes?
Statute is the civil law. I mean, it's the
But where did it come from?
laws from the government.
Okay, the government wrote it. It's government written law.
Government wrote it.
Okay, government written law. Number 4, EC, that means the EU, European Union law. Law can come from the European Union. That's a union, that's not the government. They have a court, the ECJ, the European Court of Justice, but their law is written by the European Union. It's not written by one country. So law can come from there. The other 3, 2, 5, and 6, we haven't talked about those yet. So let's talk a little, and we'll go through these pretty quickly, but let's talk first about common law. So common law, we understand, are the rules that are made by the courts, right? And they're general rules of law. Common law are the oldest kind of law. Before the government, I mean, yeah, I said there's the Code of Hammurabi, that's extremely old. There's Jewish law, that's 5,000 years old. There is ancient law. But in terms of modern law, common law are these general rules that we have. And a good case, for example, is in Re Sigsworth. So in Re Sigsworth, there was a law in 1925. Okay, and the law said, if your parents die and there's no other children, then the money will go to you. Okay? Understand? If your parents die, you get the money. That was a government written law in 1925. So, ping ping. There was a kid and his mother was rich, so he killed her. Should he get the money?
No.
Why? The law says in 1925, if someone dies and they do not have a will, ping ping, do you know what is a will?
I don't.
A will is a piece of paper that you write that says, when I die, I will give my house to this person. I'll give my money to that person. I'll give my collection of expensive cars to this person. That's called a will, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you could write a will right now if you wanted, but you need a witness. There are some rules, but you don't need a lawyer. But the law said, if you die and you don't have a will, the property will go to your child. So this child, he knew the law, he killed his mother. He knows he's going to go to jail, but he figures, okay, I'll go to jail for whatever, 15 years. When I get out, I'll be rich.
Yes.
So should he get the money?
Still no, sir.
No, why not?
I heard you teach like another law says I don't know, sir. Like the person who killed someone shouldn't benefit.
Good. So there's a law that's much older, a legal rule that's much, much older than 1925. And the rule is extirpi causa non oritur actia. This is an old, old Latin rule. You do not have to know this. This is just an example. So, but the rule, extirpi causa non oritur actio, means no one can profit from his own wrong. You can't in the law do something wrong and then get a profit. That's not fair. That's not the point of the law. That's not ethical. So even though this kid thought he could kill his mother and the law says he gets all the money, there's a much older common law rule that says, generally speaking, you cannot break the law and get a benefit. The court will not let you do that. So that's the point of common law. That common law is these general principles that we try to make the world fair. As I said before, if men were angels, if people were angels, we wouldn't need any of these rules, but people are not angels. And so we have, for whatever reason, we have in our hearts this idea of what heaven would be like. We know the 10 Commandments. We know what it would be like if the world was perfect and people didn't steal and rob and kill and hurt each other. We know what it's like. We can imagine it. And so in the law, we do our best to write those rules of a perfect world. And we do our best to make this world like that. And of course it doesn't work, but we do our best. That's the idea. So what is equity? Equity is a little bit different from common law. Equity in English means fairness. Now, common law, as I said, civil law is all about money. It's about giving people money. But let's say that, Subhan, I buy a house. Okay, I buy a house next door to your house. Now, Subhan, you have a beautiful kitchen in your house with a big, big window. And every morning when you drink your coffee and eat your eggs, you can see the mountain and you can see the sun. I mean, this is why you bought this house, this beautiful view from your kitchen. Okay, you love it. It's your favorite thing about the house. It's why you bought the house. I move in next door, and the very first thing I do is I start to build a wall, a big black brick wall between my house and your house. And as I'm building it right in front of your window. So you sue me, and I'm a rich man. I say, okay, Subhan, you want $10,000 here? I'll give you $10,000. Is that what you want? How much money will it cost for you to not see the sun in the morning? Can I put a price on that?
Money is not enough.
There's no price I can put on that.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the law, there are situations where money won't really fix the problem. Now, of course, if I give Subhan, $10 million and he's not a rich man, he might accept it. He'll just paint the sun on the brick wall and be happy with his $10 million. But there are plenty of times where the money, I'm not going to give him 10 million. I'll give him 10,000, but he doesn't want 10,000. He wants to see the sun. So sometimes money damages are not enough. In those cases, the court will give equity. And you do need to know this. This will be on your midterm. This will be on your final. I'm going to expect you to really understand equity. There are two of them I want you to understand now. One is injunction. Injunction means stop. For example, David must stop building the wall. That's what Subhan wants. He doesn't want money. He wants an injunction. He wants me to stop. This happens a lot in the case of building a factory. Let's say, Carlotta, you have this beautiful house and you're happy there. You have your family, your husband, your 7 children. And then across the street, no, it's not funny. I said you have 7 children. Across the street, somebody is building a factory. Amar is building a paper factory. And it's pumping out this terrible noise and this smell. And it's just terrible. Now, he offers you some money. But you don't want the money. Let's say that this is the house you grew up in. Your grandparents lived in this house. They built the house. And then your parents lived in this house and you were raised in this house and you want to give this house to your children. You don't want the money from Amar. The money damages are not enough. You want him to stop. And that's okay in the law. That's called injunction. Now, kind of the opposite of that is specific performance. Specific performance is what I gave an example of before with something that's unique. So if I want a painting, if I want wine, if I want something that is unique, I don't want the money from Harry. I want the wine. That's called specific performance. So for right now, I want you to know these two of them. Injunction means stop. Specific performance means unique. Got it? Injunction means stop. Specific performance means unique. Someone must perform a contract. Don't worry about contempt of court right now. Any question on that? That's pretty important.
Sir,
No? Yes.
for like building house beside the people that is like they want to see the sun like that. For example, they want to build like a mall. How? And then that's not his land. It's the owner of the mall. They can do everything what they want, right?
It depends if it interferes with your life. A mall can't just open a mall next to your house. I mean, it depends. First of all, there's something called zoning. So some places are zoned residential, which means only people can live there. You'll see this, for example, if you tried to open a business in your apartment. The government might stop you and say, no, 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 this is to live. You can't have a business here. They're zoned separately. Now, if you choose to buy a house in a place that is zoned for business, they might open a business. They could open a mall. You know, you have that choice to buy something in a place that's zoned. But there's only one time that the government can do that. And that's called eminent domain. And that means if the government needs to take land to make a highway, a hospital, something, an airport, something for the people, for everybody, then they can do it. They still have to pay you for your land, but they can just take your land and do it. If you own a house, they can't just open up a shopping mall next door. They would need permits. And you could go to the government and you could complain. Now, if you're the only person who complains, sorry, they might be able to open the shopping mall. You know, but if you want to get people together and all complain about that, they might have to find other land. They can't just buy land and do whatever they want. Even in China, you know, have you guys been to Suzhou? Anybody here been to Suzhou?
Yeah,
No?
yeah, I have been there. Yeah,
I
I've
have
been there
been.
a couple of times.
You should go check it out. It's like 30 minutes away by subway, by train.
Yeah.
So in Suzhou, there's an old part of the city where everything looks very traditional. They have a law there that says no building can be taller than the street is wide. However wide the street is, that's how tall a building can be, not taller. Why? Because just one super tall 10-story, 12-story building will destroy that old feeling. That's called a view plane law. They have them in California too. You can't just put up a giant building somewhere, it'll destroy the view. They want to protect that. So the government does have rules about what you can build, how big, how tall, stuff like that. Statutes, we've already talked about. Statutes are government-made law. They take precedent. Okay, if there's a statute and there's common law, if a statute is in conflict with the common law, generally the statute will win. Principles of common law are very, very important, just like that case with the kid who killed his mother. In that case, the statute did not win, but generally the statute will win because it's made by the government. Now, I'm not going to talk too much in this class about the EU, about the European Union. But one thing we do need to understand about the EU is this idea of what's called supremacy. So a good example would be England with Brexit. If England is in the EU, if England, this is called supremacy, if England is in the EU, then which is higher, EU law or England law? If they're in the EU, EU law is higher. But any country can choose to leave the EU. So in that one decision, even though EU law is higher, they can choose to leave. So they're higher, they're supreme. That's supremacy. Any country can choose to leave the EU. They have the supreme decision that they can leave. But if they choose to be in it, then they are below the EU laws. The first case where this was important was a case called Factortame in 1991. And in Factortame, this was about a fishing boat. It was, I think it was Spanish, yes. It was a Spanish fishing boat. And they were fishing near England. Now, England had a law. And the law in England was if you want to go fishing near England, the boat must be 75% owned by British people. This Spanish boat was not. So England sued the Spanish boat company and said, you cannot go fishing here. You're not 75% British. However, the EU had a law, so that's the British law, but the EU had a law that said you can go fishing near Britain. And the question was, which wins, EU law or British law? And EU law wins, right? So in this case, it was an English vote, 1988. So look, this is from 1988. This case did not happen until 1991. It took 3 years to get to court. And this required that any fishing boat in the UK had to be 75% owned by British. This law stopped Spanish citizens from fishing, but the EU said they can fish. And so the EU law would win. But of course, as you can see, England has supremacy. They can still choose to leave, and they did choose to leave the EU. So there's a lot of interesting stuff about EU law and the development. I mean, there's so many interesting unions in the world. There's the AU, the African Union. There's Mercosur, which is, I think, South American. There's the OPEC countries. There's the ASEAN, the Southeast Asian countries. There's so many interesting unions that all have different sort of laws. And I mean, but we're not going to get into that. This is business law, and that's international law. So we won't really get into that. Two other kinds of sources. So remember, I said there were 6 sources. Can you tell me, Carlotta, what were the 6 sources? The 6 places that law can come from?
The statutes, right? The European Union, the precedent,
Common law.
common law.
So statutes, European Union, common law. Anybody else? Give me the others.
Equity,
Equity, good.
the delegated legislation.
So let's talk about that for a second. Delegated legislation, what that means. You don't need to know this for class. This is complicated. The idea of delegated legislation is simply, let's say the government makes a law. For example, the government in America once made a law based on a court case called Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade said a woman in the first 3 months of being pregnant can choose to have an abortion if she wants. Now the government makes a big law like this, but they delegate to every state. How do you want to do this? And every state can add details. They can decide how they're going to enforce this law. Another example would be in China, doing drugs is illegal, right? It's illegal to do drugs in China. But I don't know if you know this, the rules in Pudong are totally different from the rules in Puxi. They're totally different from the rules in Suzhou and Hangzhou, everywhere. They're totally different because every city and state in China, every province is allowed to delegate the legislation. So delegated legislation just means the government makes a big law and lets each place decide how to do it. That's all you need to know. I'm never going to test you on this. The last one, which China does have sometimes, is custom. Because China is a very old culture. And old cultures like China, England is pretty old too, and they have customs. So there was this case of Hutton v. Warren. And in Hutton v. Warren, there was a farmer. And the farmer rented land. Okay, so he rented land. Let's say Ploy. Ploy, you are a farmer, and you rent land from me. Okay, I'm the landowner, and you are my tenant. And you planted corn. Now, the harvest is going to come soon, but not yet, maybe next month. And your corn is growing. But this month, you're late, and you can't pay me the rent. And I say, Ploy, if you can't pay me the rent, then of course you can't stay on the land. And you say, okay, let me just collect the corn. And I say, no. That corn is on my land. That's my corn. Ploy, is that my corn? Tell me what you think.
I would say yes, according to the land. I think yes, because like suppose I'm like a renter and I owe you money, and also I don't pay you money, plus I have something on your land, so that means that thing, the corn and stuff, will be yours.
Okay.
Instead of the payment.
Can anybody argue the other side? Argue that the corn would belong to Ploy? Can anybody argue that the corn would belong to her?
The corn should belongs to her, not the landowner.
Why?
Because the law says.
But why?
Because it belongs to her because she is the one who grew it.
Okay.
Yeah, but
It was
she didn't
her.
pay.
It was her hard work, though.
Mhm.
She rented the land from me, but I don't get her work for free. That corn represents, that's a physical representation of her hard work, and that work belongs to her. Even though it's on my land, it's her work. Now, that was a tradition in England. It was just a tradition that even if you couldn't pay for the land, you still got to keep the vegetables you planted. And so the farmer won this case based on local custom, and then this became a law. So custom can become law. Good, let's look at an example. Crystal, you are an elephant hunter, okay? And you see an elephant and you shoot it, but you don't chase it, you know, because elephants are very hard to kill. You can't just shoot it once. It's gonna run for a long time, and so you just go have lunch. Now, where you live, the general habit is for people who find dead elephants to report them to the police, and then you say, oh yeah, that was my elephant, I killed it, and then you would pay a fee to whoever reported it. But this is just a local custom. It's not actually the law. So someone else, Florian, finds the elephant you shot. He doesn't know the local custom, so he sells it at the market, and you sue him. There's no law saying it's yours, and he says he found it so he can keep it. Crystal, how would you argue that it's yours?
This is similar to the case Pearson v. Post.
Good, it is similar.
Yeah, yeah, because I find it first and I shot it but I don't know, because I didn't really continue, like I abandoned the pursuit, so I'm not sure. But
Can
yeah,
I
I
say
found
something?
it first because if I found it and shot it, then it should be mine.
And Florian, what would you argue?
In the other case, you had the proof. You said like you could see the direct correlation between the animal dead and the person who actually shot at the animal, because there is like the blood which draws the line. This was the factual, like the obvious proof. Now you have no obvious proof. I can say I kill him or my brother did. Who knows?
Okay.
Sir, can I say something?
Yes.
I think it could belong to the hunter, because he's the one, he shot the elephant, and the other, just he found it. He cannot keep it, that it's not for him. And it's similar to the case of wolf. Somebody, I think I saw the video, in the first video, one guy who shot the wolf and somebody else found it and sell
Sure,
it or
well
something.
that's
Yeah.
what Crystal just said, the Pearson v. Post, the Fox case.
Yeah.
So now there's one thing to add to this. You guys are right, but there's one thing to add, which is in the court, we're always going to try to look for logic. What's the reason that this is a custom? Now, in this actual case, this was called Gen v. Rich in 1881, and it wasn't an elephant, it was a whale. Now, there was a reason that they had this rule, and the rule was the same. If you shoot a whale, it doesn't die so quickly. Whales are really big. It's going to keep swimming. And when it gets beached or it floats on the water, you're supposed to tell the police, and then you get a fee. So this man, Mr. Gen, he shot the whale, and then this other man, Mr. Rich, he bought it. He got it at the auction and bought it. He said, it's mine. And Mr. Gen said, no, I shot it. Now, the logic here was in Massachusetts in 1881, we're in Massachusetts in 1881, killing whales is a big part of their economy. If you didn't have this custom of finding and reporting the whales, the whole industry would stop. Because if Crystal goes and shoots it, why bother? Why bother shooting the whale If you can't follow it, it might take days for it to float, and it's underwater. You don't know where it is. But this is a big part of the industry. We need people like Crystal to go out and kill these whales, because that's how we all survive as a city. So we need to turn this custom into law. For the same reason that the farmer who has the land, we need to protect the farmer. Or else what if I'm the landowner and every time it's right before the harvest, I raise the price of rent? We can't let the landowners do that. It will destroy our local economy. So we want to protect the local economy, and that's really what customs are about. Now your homework, just because we're finished this slide, we still have time. So your homework for this week, I gave you 4 new cases I'd like you to look at. I'll tell you right now, all of these cases, every one of them, you will use in your midterm. Every one of them must be used in your midterm. So the better that you understand these now, and again, don't go and read the whole thing. They're like 20 or 30 pages. Look on YouTube, watch a 2-minute video, get the idea of the story, then look on Wikipedia. I just want you to understand what happened. Okay, when I say you're going to use them in your midterm, what I mean is you're going to use the logic. Why did the court make this kind of decision? Because I'm going to give you a story in your midterm that's going to have some things that are similar to Ali, and some things that are similar to Thornton v. Shulane, and some things that are similar to Chapelton v. Barry. And I'm going to ask you as a law student to explain, why is this similar to that? Why is this similar to that? So you got to know these stories and understand what was the story, why did the judge make this decision? But you don't need to read the whole thing. Start with YouTube and then go to Wikipedia. That should be enough for each of them. And then if you can, in McIntyre, you'd read chapter 8, which is torts. But we're going to begin torts now. Let us take our 10-minute break. Okay, so it's 9:28. Let's come back at 9:38, or whatever 10 minutes is for you. And then we will continue with torts. Any questions before we take our break?
Sir, like, how's the midterms gonna be? Like, is it gonna be essay or test?
It's going to be an essay. Yeah.
An essay?
Yeah. So I already put up 2 videos on your links on Blackboard. I'd say watch those. I mean, I put up 2-hour-long videos. So that's going to tell you pretty much step by step what I want you to do. So that'll give you a ton of information. Then next week, we're going to go through this story, the essay together. I'll explain to you in detail exactly what I want. And then every week for the next 4 weeks, I'm going to be telling you what I want you to do next. So it's going to be very step by step, right? Because I want you guys to produce a good essay. I really want you to see what legal writing is like. Remember last class, I said one of my big goals is when you get out of this class, I want you to be able to write a letter to someone who hurt you without going to a lawyer, to write a letter to them that they might say, read this and say, uh-oh. They might give it to their lawyer and their lawyer would say, uh-oh, I think you should just settle this. I think you should just pay that guy or that girl. You know, this person obviously knows the law. And that's the goal. One of the big goals of this class is to learn how to write those letters. So that's really what we're doing. You know, your midterm, it doesn't have, no letter is 20 pages long. So it's not going to be that long, but it really does need to be like a balanced analysis. Too many people, I can't tell you how many people have come to me after writing an angry letter to someone. Angry letters accomplish nothing. In fact, they do the opposite. Let's say I broke a contract with you and Omar, you write me a letter. Dear David, how do you sleep at night? You're a horrible person. I think you should go kill yourself. I'm going to get this letter and be like, haha, I win. Not only did I break the contract, look how angry this guy is. You know, dear Omar, sorry, I didn't quite understand. Could you write again? I mean, why do I care? I'm winning, you know? No, we want a balanced, very calm response. You know, dear David, here's the situation. Here's what's going to happen if we go to court. Here's the law, just very balanced. And then I read it and say, oh no, is this the truth? I give it to a lawyer and the lawyer says, yeah, that's the truth. You might as well, and then I just will pay you because I don't want to. You're not angry. You're calm. That takes training in the law to be calm.
Yeah.
Okay, so take 10 minutes, then we'll come back. Okay, we've resumed recording. So how many people, so a bunch of people looked at Donahue. Jody, can you tell us the story, generally speaking?
So there were two girls, and then they get into a cafe, and they drink ginger beer.
Yes.
Yeah, and then inside the ginger beer, inside of the bottle, there was a like snail.
A dead snail.
Yeah.
Snail, yeah.
And the girl like shocked, and then she shoot the company or something like that.
Okay, well, let's start by saying woman. These are not girls, they were women. They were older women who went to a cafe. Now, so good, that's a good story. Now and this is an important case that we're gonna spend a lot of time on called negligence. And we'll get to this idea today, but we won't get deep into it. But here's the deal. Let's say that two women go to this coffee shop. Let's say, for example, it was Crystal and Ping Ping go to this coffee shop. Now, in this case, Crystal buys 2 bottles of ginger beer, which is like soda. It's not alcohol, but she buys 2 bottles. And she drinks one and she gives one to Ping Ping. Ping Ping drinks it and Ping Ping gets very sick because there's this dead snail. Now, here's the problem. Who can Ping Ping sue? She's not a customer, right? Crystal bought the beer. Now, if Crystal got sick, Crystal was the customer, so she could sue the cafe. Ping Ping can't. Ping Ping's not a customer. And because Crystal bought the beer, she could sue the company that made the beer. Ping Ping can't. She's not a customer. Traditionally in England, everything like this, when you got hurt by a product, was done through contracts. And to have a contract, you need to have some kind of relationship. Usually, in this case, a relationship where one person spends money to buy something. Crystal spent the money. But what the court said is, well, that's not fair. Ping Ping got hurt by this company. It's not fair that Ping Ping can't sue anybody. Ping Ping should have to pay the doctor, pay the hospital. Why? So they created this new rule called the neighbor test. Anybody remember Florian, what's the neighbor test? You have to turn on your sound.
Sorry. What are the consequences or repercussion of your action? Like, if I do something not intentionally, but something wrong, who my action will affect directly or indirectly?
So where did this come from? Anybody know?
The Bible.
The Bible. Jesus said, love thy neighbor. And the judge said, yeah, you should love your neighbor. You know, and if you hurt your neighbor, you should be responsible. And we can't say that because Crystal bought the beer and Ping Ping didn't, then the company's not responsible. They hurt their neighbor. Who's your neighbor? The court gave us a definition of what is a neighbor. A neighbor, and this is kind of what Florian said, a neighbor is anyone who is affected by you. As long as you expected that they could be. You know, there's this really important idea we're going to talk about of expectation, which we call foreseeability. And that's a big, big thing in Caparo. Let's hold off talking about Caparo. Did anybody look at that case? Look at Caparo? That's a harder case. It's a little more complicated. Let's wait until we get to that one naturally, then we'll talk about it. But good. It's good that you guys are looking at these, trying to understand the logic. You know, the logic is this drink company, they hurt Ping Ping. Why did they hurt Ping Ping? Because they were careless. And that's the key idea with this kind of court case of negligence. In business, a lot of times you do business, especially if you're working with China. You order 10,000 men's shirts. You order 10,000 coffee cups. You order blankets. You order whatever you order. Sometimes a company is careless. Now, what happens when somebody's careless? You could be physically hurt, like in the case of Donahue, where you order a drink and then you get sick from it. That could be the same case if you're doing trade with China and you order food, bacon, pork, meat, vegetables, tea, whatever, and you sell it to someone and then they get hurt. How do you sue this company in China for getting hurt? Or the hurt, maybe it's not physical, maybe it's financial. Maybe somebody hurt you because you bought 100 boxes of men's shirts and they came back and they were all damaged and wet and you can't sell them. And the Chinese company says, well, I'm not going to pay you. How do you sue them for that? You got hurt. You got hurt financially. Now, you can try to use contract law, but there might be a better way. And that's what we're going to learn first. Because a lot of times when you want to hurt someone, when you want to sue someone because you got hurt, there's a better way than using contract law. We'll learn that too. But I want to teach you this way first. And then your midterm is going to focus on how do you write this legal letter using this way. I got hurt financially, physically, or emotionally. Any of those. I got hurt. You did it. I'm suing you. Then in your final exam, I'm going to focus much more about how you would use contracts for that. So let's get into this idea of torts, see where we can get today. So this is now up on Blackboard, so you can watch this. The slides look a little different, but they were recorded last year, but the information is pretty much the same. So I already gave you the homework. Okay, let's start with the question. Jordan, you are walking through a department store, and inside the department store, there's a KFC. You walk past the KFC and you slip on a chicken bone and you fall and you hurt your leg. Should KFC pay you?
Yeah, sure.
The chicken bone was outside their door, not inside.
Yeah, because they made it.
Yeah, but it's outside their door.
Yeah, they made it because they're recipient, so they made it.
They made the chicken?
Yeah.
But what if Jody was the customer and Jody was eating the chicken and he left the store and he didn't care, so he just threw the bone on the floor? How can KFC stop Jody from doing that?
But they're supposed to have somebody outside to clean the stuff. Those leftover food, something like that, they're supposed to have somebody to take them away, to throw them in the garbage. Yeah.
Now, what if this was inside a Walmart? Do you think Walmart should pay you or just KFC?
That's Walmart, not a KFC.
Oh, you think now Walmart should pay and not KFC?
Not KFC because it's inside Walmart. We don't know that. We don't know that exactly that's come from KFC or what.
Okay. Okay, so in this case, it was Walmart and it was a McDonald's inside a Walmart. There was a woman and she slipped on a French fry outside the door of McDonald's and she hurt her foot, she fractured her bone. And the circuit court, that's the second level, they gave her $30,000. And then the holding was affirmed. You absolutely must know this word. What does affirmed mean? That means this court, the Supreme Court, they said, we agree. Affirm equals we agree. Right? They agree with who? They agree with the judge. The judge said, we're giving her $30,000. And Walmart said, no. McDonald's should pay, not us. But the judge said, no, we agree. You should pay. Now, you do not have to know this rule. But just so you see it, the rule is if a condition exists upon land, Walmart is land, which has an unreasonable risk of harm, such as French fries or chicken bones. And here's the key idea I want you to know. If the possessor, Walmart, knows or should have known. Did Walmart know that there was a French fry outside the door? No, they didn't know that. But should they? As Jordan said, if there's a KFC, they should know that people might drop bones or French fries or whatever outside, and they should have someone there to clean it, because they should know. And this is a really important idea in the law. It doesn't matter what you do know. It matters what you should know. If you're driving really, really fast and the police stop your car and they say, hey, did you know that you're going 100 miles an hour? You cannot say, no, I didn't know. It doesn't matter if you know. You should know. Did you know the speed limit was 60? No, officer, I didn't know. It doesn't matter if you know. If I'm walking down the street with a gun and the police says, you can't have a gun, I can't say, oh, I didn't know. It doesn't matter if you know. It only matters if you should know. So if there's a condition that's dangerous on land and the person who owns the land or uses the land should know that it's dangerous, now they have, and here's a really key word that we're going to talk about a lot, a duty. A duty is an obligation. And in the law, we talk a lot about obligations. So we're going to talk a lot about this idea of a duty, a responsibility. So Walmart, in this case, had a responsibility. And what we want to know first, before we can sue anybody, is we have to know if people have a responsibility. Okay?
David, let me ask you a
Yes.
question. Why we use the word always instead like have?
Because a responsibility is something you owe to people. It's not just something you have. Owe is a really heavy word, like you owe me money.
This is like a obligation.
Yes. It's almost a moral obligation. You know, if I owe you money, I have a moral and ethical obligation to give you that money. And if I owe a duty, I have a moral and ethical obligation to society. Right now, Walmart has an obligation to society to make sure people don't slip. They make money from this McDonald's, and therefore they have a responsibility. Aruni, I'm going to tell you a sad story. Are you ready? Okay. There was this guy named Podar, a boy named Podar, and he was a university student, and he was in love with this beautiful girl. And he loved her so much, but he couldn't understand why she didn't love him, but she didn't. So he went to the school doctor and he said, doctor, I'm going to kill her. Because if I can't have her, then no one can have her. And the doctor said, listen, Podar, you got to calm down. Here, take some Xanax. You know what Xanax is, Aruni? It's a medicine that makes you calm. The doctor said, here, just take this medicine. And he gave Podar the medicine, but Podar didn't take the medicine. And he did not relax. So the question, Aruni, is the doctor responsible for this girl's death?
I don't think so. He gave him the medicine.
Okay. The doctor did not have a responsibility. The doctor filled his responsibility, right? His responsibility, he listened to Podar, he gave him the medicine, now the doctor is done.
Yeah.
Amar, do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Does anybody
At the
disagree?
same time, like, he should have reported to the campus.
Well, that's a very different answer. Did the doctor, you think, have a moral obligation to report it to the campus?
Yes.
You have to, because the student is in danger.
Okay.
Like,
now then, if that's true, then maybe the doctor is responsible. Now, if the doctor is responsible, is the university responsible because they hired the doctor?
Yes.
You always want to sue the person who has the most money. A human life is
works
worth a
for
lot of
them,
money. We're going to talk a little later in this course about the value of a human life and how much it costs. Different parts of your body have different prices in the law. And your body is worth a certain amount of money, and your life is too. And if you're from different countries, it's worth different money. And if you're different ages, it's worth different money. So in this case, and this is a true story, in 1976, Podar went to the doctor and he said, I'm going to kill this girl. Her name was Tarasov. And no one warned her, and Podar killed her. So you don't really need to understand the judgment because this is very, very legal, right? They sustained a defendant's demurrer to plaintiff's complaint What that means is the defendant, who is the University of California, they tried to throw this out. They said, this has nothing to do with us. The doctor gave him medicine, that's it. And the court said, no, no, no. The plaintiff, that's the girl's parents, they can sue. They can sue the psychologist. And they can sue the university. That is, and here's another word you need to know, reversed and remanded. You need to know this. So I said affirm means agree. If the court says if they say we affirm, that means we agree with the court below us. Reversed means no, we don't agree. And remanded means go back down to the trial court and start again. So what this court said, the Supreme Court, they said, you can sue the psychologist, but we're not going to deal with this. Go back down to the trial court and start again. And the rule here is, again, this idea of duty. Once a therapist or a doctor determines or should have determined, it doesn't matter if he knew. It matters that he should have known as a doctor. He should have known that this girl was in danger, that this patient, Podar, had a serious danger of violence. He then automatically had a duty. Where's my...
Sir, how about like, you know, a therapist and a patient secrecy, like between them, like privacy?
You have, it's not called secrecy, it's called confidentiality. And you do have doctor-patient confidentiality unless you say you're going to hurt yourself or others. So you have it with me too. If I'm your lawyer, there's lawyer-client confidentiality. And if you come to me and you say, David, last night I robbed a house. Okay, I'm not going to tell anybody. But if you say, David, tonight I'm going to kill or I'm going to hurt this person, I have to tell the police. So as a lawyer, I might tell you, hey, Amar, don't tell me what you're going to do tonight. I don't want to know. Just don't tell me.
So,
you know,
this case...
Sorry?
Sorry. No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's it. And wanted to say something?
This case is just to see if the daughter's parents can sue the university and the physiologist. It's not about who is, if they are like they commit crime or not. It's before that, right?
Well, we're not talking about a crime. This is private law. Look at who's suing. You have a person against a university. That's not the government. So we're not talking about criminal law. What we're talking about here is money.
I see, but it's like, it's not about if they are guilty or not. It's about like, can I sue?
Yes. So a lot of times when you go to court, you go to trial court, and then the trial court, the judge, like I said, the judge is not maybe the most experienced. They might have a question. Their question, they're going to send that up to the next court. And that court higher will answer the question, which in this case is, yes, you can sue the doctor and the university. And then the case will go back down and the judge will say, okay, now I know, let's start again. Let me tell you about a contest. Sometimes we have these contests in America for radio stations where the radio station will give away money. We do this all the time. You drive around in a car, like a van that says the name of your station. And if people run up and they tell you your famous thing, like there's a radio station in America that's 100.3. And if you say Z100 Morning Zoo, they'll give you $20. It's like an advertising thing. So there was this guy, he was driving around, and if you see him, you say like Z100 Morning Zoo, and then they give you $20. Now some teenagers started chasing him because he had money. So they're chasing his car. So he starts driving faster and faster and faster. He almost hits this guy named Mr. Wyram. He doesn't hit him, but he almost does. But Mr. Wyram spins the wheel, goes off the road, and hits a tree and dies. Who's responsible for this car accident? Crystal, who's responsible? The DJ, he was driving fast.
The radio station, because I think these activities or this program is not, yeah, there is an like foreseeable dangers to the people.
Is it Mr. Wyram's fault?
Not really. Not
I mean,
really.
he hit a tree.
He was just driving though.
Yeah. Okay. And the court agrees with you. In Wyram v. RKO General, the court said, affirmed, we agree. The jury found for the plaintiff, for Mr. Wyram. That means they found for, this phrase, found for, means how do I go back? Found for means this person wins. The plaintiff wins. So Mr. Wyram wins. The radio station has to pay. Just as you said, they should have known that this was a dangerous contest. What should the DJ have done? Can you sue the DJ? Yeah, you can. The DJ should have stopped. He should have stopped the car and given all the money to the teenagers. He shouldn't have driven fast. But what we get from this case is this idea of ordinary care. What is your duty? Nicola, Crystal, Jordan, Jody, Amar, Aruni, Harry, what's your duty? And your duty is called ordinary care. Ordinary care is a duty. You guys have a responsibility to stop other people from being hurt as a result of your actions, which just means you can't do anything too crazy. So Ping Ping, you can't walk down the street with a bow and arrow and just start shooting into crowds. You can't do that. You can't run down the street holding a knife. You can't drive your car into a group of people. You can't stand on a bridge and drop bowling balls onto cars. You can't do that stuff. You have a duty to not be crazy. Ordinary care. Now, all of these things that we're talking about right now are examples of torts cases. This is the first big subject we're going to talk about. A tort is called a civil wrong, and you need to know that. It's a civil wrong. It's something you did that's wrong. You drove your car too fast. You killed someone. You were a doctor and you didn't tell the police that this boy said he was going to hurt a girl. You know, you did something wrong, but it's not a crime. So when Podar killed that girl, is Podar going to go to prison? Junpyo. Podar killed a girl. Is he going to prison?
I think he won't because...
Oh no, he's going to prison. He killed a girl, man. You can't kill people.
Oh wait, I thought it was the DJ one.
No, the guy who killed a girl at the University of California, he's going to prison.
Yeah.
But Junpyo, is the doctor going to prison?
I don't think the doctor is going to prison, but maybe
Correct.
you have to pay for it.
Yes, the doctor's not going to prison. He did not commit a criminal wrong, but the doctor did do something wrong. It was civil.
Civil wrong. Civil wrong.
By civil, what do we mean? Money. It is something that was wrong, but we're not talking about freedom. We're not talking about going to jail. We're talking about money. This is business law. People are going to do things wrong in business. It might be send you the wrong shirts. It might be send you food that's old. It might be all kinds of things. They're going to do things wrong. You're not trying to send people to prison. You're trying to get money. Now, there's lots of kinds of torts. Okay, there's battery and assault, which you might have heard of. What's the difference between battery and assault? Battery is when you touch someone. It could be you punch someone in the face. That's touching. It's unwanted touching. It could be that you kick someone. It could be that you break a bottle and cut someone. All of that is battery. Or it could be that you go over, let's say I go over to a girl and I touch her face. And she didn't want me to do that. That's battery. Unwanted touching. Now, if let's say I go to, let's say Florian. Okay, Florian's a tough guy and we're both at the bar and we get in a fight. And I punch Florian in the face and I break his nose. Florian, can you sue me for battery? Absolutely. Right? You're gonna, now, the government might also sue me to make me go to prison, maybe, but you can sue me for money because you got to go to the hospital, you got to see a doctor. What if I go to school and Aruni is there and I touch Aruni's hair in a very uncomfortable way, Aruni? I see you and I say, oh, Aruni, your hair is so beautiful. And I touch your hair. Can you sue me?
Yeah, sure.
Just
She can.
touching.
Yes, I stroke your hair. I say, oh, Aruni, your hair is so sexy and beautiful. Can you sue
No,
me for
like
that?
that, yeah.
I don't think so. I
Well,
don't know.
there's a difference between the Florian case and the Aruni case. Both of them are battery. Both of them are unwanted touching. Okay, Florian didn't want me to hit him, and Aruni didn't want me to touch her. They're both unwanted touching. The difference, and we're going to get really into this in this class, is damages. Florian has clear damages. He has to pay money to the hospital or to the doctor or get medicine. Maybe he can't go to work for a couple days. His damages are very real. Aruni's damages, she doesn't really have damages. Yeah, but I mean, sure, she feels bad. Now, what I would tell Aruni, if you came to see me as a lawyer and you said, David, my teacher touched me on my hair and it made me uncomfortable, you know what I would say? I would say, Aruni, right now, I want you to go to the hospital. I want you to go to the hospital and I want you to tell the doctor, I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't go to school, I'm very afraid, I need medicine, I need psychology. I don't care if you're telling the truth. Get evidence. Get evidence that you need money. Then you could sue the teacher. Because without evidence that you need money for something, the law is not really going to help you. The law is not meant to make people nice. The law can't make people apologize. The law is meant to get you back to before you were hurt. Now, in the case I just gave, Aruni could sue me using sexual harassment. Absolutely. And sexual harassment is a lot easier to win than many cases. So in that case, she could win. And if you came to my law office, I would say, we're going to sue the teacher for sexual harassment, but I would never say battery, because you'll never win, because you have no damages. You need to have been hurt in a way that cost you money. So that's something that we're going to come back again and again to this in this semester. If you want to sue somebody, you need to show that you were actually hurt in a way that cost you money. Assault is a little different from battery. Assault is, I made you afraid that I was going to hit you. So if I said, Florian, if I see you in my class, I'm going to punch you. And I'm a big, tough guy. And that made you very afraid. And so you don't go to class and then you lose money and you fail and you have to go to another year. You could sue me, even though I didn't touch you, because I made you afraid. So making someone afraid is against the law. You can't just go around making people afraid. That's illegal.
Where's the evidence? How can you prove that?
Good question. So if Florian wanted to sue me for that, what we would do is get people who heard me say it. Maybe he recorded me. Witnesses. We need evidence. We need witnesses. We need, now, maybe we can't get witnesses. Maybe I said it to Florian alone. Then what we get is we get something called a character witness. So let's talk for a second about this, because in law, a lot of times you're going to ask me, well, where's the evidence? So a character witness would be, let's say that we go to court and Florian says, David threatened me. Everybody understand what I mean? David threatened me. He said he was going to hurt me. Now, you can't prove that, but what if Florian gets Ploy and Carlotta and Aruni and Junpyo and they all come to court and they all say, listen, David threatens people. We've known David for years. David's a violent guy. I know David. He gets in fights. He hurts people. He threatens people. Who's the jury going to believe? Is the jury, these 12 people, are they going to believe Florian and all of these other people who say David is violent? Or are they going to believe me? They might believe Florian and then Florian wins. That's called a character witness. You bring in people who talk about this person's character if you don't have direct evidence, because you didn't record me saying it. You didn't have a video. You didn't have an audio. Can you record someone without their permission? Sure. Now, in America, sorry?
If he's threatening you, it's okay to record him.
It's always okay, but in America, you have to tell someone, and the rule is you're not supposed to just record random things. You're supposed to tell them you're recording, or like you said, if you believe something illegal, anything illegal is going to happen, you can then record it. In China, you can record anything for any reason, for any amount of time. No rules.
Even in Saudi Arabia right now, you cannot even have a fight or anything like this. Everyone pulls up their phone.
I know,
What
right?
you gonna do?
I know, so it's true. So just think about as we talk, because we're gonna come back to this idea of what are your damages? You know, let's say we're walking down the street and I'm just having a bad day. I'm just angry. And I see Nicola and I just push you. Can you sue me?
Yes.
For what?
For pushing me.
What do you want?
Because you pushed me, I
What do you
fell
want
and-
from me? Yeah, but what do you want?
Money.
Why?
Compensation.
Why should I give you money?
Because
Did you
hurt
lose
me.
money?
You cannot do it.
I know, but did you
I had
lose
to
money?
go to the doctor, you know, see my head, if it's everything
Your
okay.
head? Come on, I
The
just pushed you.
consultation.
Stop being a baby.
I'm
I
in
just
China,
pushed
you know,
you.
the doctors here are really expensive. So
Because you make him nervous.
don't met me. I don't have problem. I don't need to go to the doctor, but
No
what
way.
can I do?
I just pushed
it's not
you.
my
You
fault.
didn't fall down. You didn't
Yeah,
get
but-
hurt.
Sir,
Yeah, but you
You
know, now I cannot go to outside anymore.
You're never ever gonna win this
Someone
case.
pushed me. You hurt my
Never gonna win
emotions.
this case.
It was emotional. You know,
emotional,
I had
yes.
You're never
problems
gonna
with
win
my
that.
emotions.
It's hard to win an emotional case. You really need to prove it. So the
Yeah,
answer,
I
can
went to
he
the
sue
doctor.
me? Yes, he can sue me. He will lose. The law cannot make someone apologize. That's not the responsibility. That's not the point of law. The point of law is to give you back what you lost. Sometimes we can't. We can't give you back your daughter or your son. We can't give you back your leg. We can't give you back those years. We can't sometimes, and all we can give you is money. But the point of law is to give you back what you lost, to try to put you back before you got hurt, when you were okay. So you need surgery, I'll pay. You need to see a doctor, I'll pay. You need therapy, I'll pay. You don't need those things, sorry. I'm a bad guy, that's the way it is. The world has bad guys in it. Law is not meant to make me a good guy.
But what about the punishment that the guy who pushed someone must be punished?
Why?
It's not
He
the law.
just pushed
This
you.
is not the church.
He pushed every day, like in the subway and everywhere, like so. You're
The
gonna sue
law-
everyone that like they pushed you accidentally.
The law is not meant to
Even-
make people nice. That's not the point of law. People get
Okay.
pushed, people get insulted, people get touched. The job of law is not to fix those things. It's to put you in a situation where whatever you lost, you get back. Now, there are some exceptions, like I said, with sexual harassment. If I sexually harass someone, they didn't lose anything tangible. They didn't lose money. But I did put them in a situation where they're uncomfortable. Now, if I threaten Nicola every day you come to school, I say, you come near me and I'm going to push you. Now that's different because there's a pattern of me threatening you. Now you could sue me. But what do you want? You can't get money. If I'm making a girl uncomfortable and she sues me for sexual harassment, she won't get money. She'll get to be put in a situation that's away from me. Maybe she's moved to a different part of the company. Maybe I'm fired. We'll try to make her life okay, get me away from her. But why does she need money? If I touch a Rooney's hair, why does a Rooney need money for that? She needs to get away from me, and the law will help accomplish that. But we don't give you money unless you lost money. So we need to be very clear about that idea of damages. You can't just sue someone for no reason. You have to have lost something. So let's get back to this. We still have a little bit of time. False imprisonment. That's when you hold someone against their will. So for the most common case of false imprisonment, let's say I have a store and Harry comes into my store and Harry walks over to the expensive perfume section and I see him take some expensive perfume and put it in his shirt. And I walk over and I say, excuse me, Harry, did you steal some perfume? And Harry says, what? Me? No. Now I say, Harry, I'm calling the police. And Harry says, no, I'm leaving. Can I grab Harry and make him sit and wait for the police? Yes. Shopkeeper privilege. I most certainly can. Can I punch Harry in the face? No. Can I tie him up with tape to a chair? No. You know, if I do that, it's false imprisonment. Yes, Florian?
Maybe it differs from country, because like some country, for example, in France, we cannot. You must call the police, and the police is like the police represent the law, so they are the law enforcement as they can modify your right as a free man.
I would have to check this, but I'm pretty sure in any country you can make a citizen's arrest, which means you can hold someone until the police come, as long as you don't use unnecessary force.
Okay, for example, sometimes I take the public transport without the tickets. If someone asks me for the tickets and I just leave, or I don't want to give you my information, you cannot force me to be here.
You do not need to give information.
I'll have to check.
Yeah, here, maybe in other countries it's different. Do you know when you like transport tickets, they check, sometimes they check.
That's different though. You didn't hurt me. If I say, hey man, you didn't use a ticket, that's you against the transport agency. If an officer from the transport agency saw you do that, they could hold you. I couldn't because you didn't touch me.
Oh, okay, so if my wrong is
directly hurting me,
someone, right?
This is only for shops.
Okay, so if someone stole goods from the shop, right?
Generally, you're allowed, at least in America, you're right. I have to check on France. Is there shopkeeper privilege?
Okay,
I'll check on that.
But to keep someone, you must have the proof. If it's based on assumption, you cannot.
You must have reasonable suspicion. It can't be based on nothing.
So like a footage, or when you calculate the number of chocolate bar, one is missing.
Well, I mean, usually it would be I saw you do it.
Sir.
You're
Yes.
a witness.
This is not a proof.
Well, but I mean, okay, then anybody can steal from anybody and there's nothing anybody can do. That's not reasonable.
You need a footage or a missing bar.
Now you have to stop somebody when it's happening. You can't just let criminals walk away and then tell them the police they don't know how to capture this person. They don't know where this person lives, even if you do have footage.
No, maybe because in France, maybe we have too much right. I do agree, maybe.
I'll check on that. Yes, Jordan.
Okay, about the shoplift. For example, if you detain someone who steals from the shop and something, and he resists, he starts to fight, do you have the right to fight with him, or just you have to wait?
No. If they want to punch you, that is against the law. You call the police. That's assault.
Okay.
But you definitely have the right to protect yourself.
Yeah, self-defense.
Self-defense, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, self-defense is fine as long as you don't escalate. So you have to use the same equal force. If they punch me, you can punch. If they take a knife, you can use a knife. But if they punch you, you cannot pull out a knife and kill them.
Okay.
You have to use equal force.
Okay.
So 3 other, briefly, torts that I think you should have heard of. There's intentional infliction of emotional distress, IIED, and negligent infliction of emotional distress, NIED, right? So NIED. These are hard cases to win. IIED is when I make you sad or hurt your feelings very badly on purpose. So if I tell the entire school that, that Harry is buying grades, you know, that he pays all the teachers, whatever. I tell some bad rumor about Harry, and it just ruins your time at school. It ruins your reputation, and I did it on purpose. You could sue me for this tort, IIED, because I did it on purpose to hurt you. A lot of times this happens when somebody writes a story about someone and just says things that are like too crazy. More common is NIED, where I hurt your feelings really badly, but it wasn't on purpose. And the most common case of this is when I hit someone's child with a car. So let's say I'm driving my car and I hit someone's child. Now you're this child's parent and you're standing on a sidewalk and you see your child get hit. This can absolutely destroy you emotionally. Did I do it on purpose to hurt you? No, of course not. I didn't try to hurt you at all. I didn't even try to hurt the child. It was just a vehicular accident. It was just a driving accident. But it doesn't matter. It hurt you. It hurt you very badly emotionally. You didn't get touched. My car didn't touch you. But I was careless, and now you have emotional distress. That's the most common case of NIED. Finally is loss of consortium. And loss of consortium means you were in some kind of accident, a physical accident, and you can no longer make love to your husband or wife. So the idea of this is once you lose the ability to be intimate, sexually intimate with your husband or wife, it has to be someone with whom you have a very long, not long, but that level of relationship. It can't just be like, I can't go on Tinder anymore. It has to be like a husband or a wife or something like that. You can sue for the tort of having lost this, because actually when people, this happens when people have like a construction accident. You're working doing construction, you fall, you hurt your back, and you can no longer be intimate. This can really destroy a marriage. You know, it can really ruin a long-term marriage. And so it is a separate tort, very, very old tort, you know, from like 1700s. So I'd like to look at these very briefly and just get through these examples. Then we'll get up to torts. So give me about, 5 more minutes and then we'll stop. I like to keep it, I mean, I prefer to have a 3-hour class, but I figure you guys are probably exhausted. So just give me 5 more minutes, okay? Okay, so I just want to go through some examples. This is an example of false imprisonment, was Shoyoye. In 2012, the police arrested a man for an unpaid subway ticket and for a theft by someone who stole his identity. And the court ordered him to be released, but there was some paperwork problem and he was sent to state prison and he was held in jail for more than 2 weeks. That's an example of false imprisonment, obviously being kept somewhere against you. Well, you don't need to write any of this, just look at it. But as I said, in an example of like Harry stealing, you accidentally put a bottle of Chanel No. 5 in your pocket and the clerk sees you do this and a security guard grabs your arm and won't let go and he pushes you into a room and the door is locked and you wait an hour for the police. In that case, that is usually legitimate. That's called the privilege to detain or shopkeeper privilege. They have to use reasonable force and they have to hold the person for the police. It must be a detention. Has to be a reasonable manner, has to be a reasonable amount of time. We're going to see this word in law so much. Law is not mathematics. We can't say it must be out of 1 to 10, the force must be 3.2, and the amount of time must be no more than 12.5 minutes. Or we can't use numbers like that. You can use reasonable force for a reasonable manner in a reasonable amount of time. In the law, everything is about words. IIED, that's where you hurt someone on purpose. It has to be extreme. It has to be outrageous. something that really severely hurts another person. It must be, and here's the definition, so outrageous that it exceeds the bounds of decency accepted by society. So there was a famous case in America, and this PPT is on Blackboard, so you can download it and write this stuff down if you want to. I'm not going to test you on any of this. But let's say, for example, I run for mayor in my hometown and I win. And during the election, I eat a lot and I gain a lot of weight. And a local newspaper prints photos of me and calls me the mayor of Fatty Town, the honorable mayor Big Butt. And they say I ate people who didn't vote for me. And I'm so insulted that I sue them for IIED. Will I win? And the answer would be no. I'm not going to win this case. Why?
Because of freedom of speech. Like, he didn't do anything. He just gave his opinion.
Well, it's not his opinion that I ate people. He doesn't really think I ate people.
And
He's
for
being mean to me.
defamation, you can sue him, right?
Right. This is defamation, except
if it's
no, it's not true. I'm a public figure.
Oh.
And in America and most countries, if you choose to be a public figure, politics, be a celebrity, you lose some of your defamation rights. So the famous case is Hustler magazine versus Jerry Falwell. So Hustler magazine was a dirty magazine in America that, like a naked pictures magazine. And they put an advertisement talking about this guy who's I wrote this wrong. He was a reverend, a priest. And they say he lost his virginity to his mother in a bathroom while he was drunk. And he sued them. I mean, that's pretty terrible. He's a priest. You can't just go around saying that about a priest. And the trial court, of course, said, Mr. Falwell wins. But then the Supreme Court, they reversed it. They said, no, no, no. He's a public figure. And if you want to make fun of a public figure, you can. In China, you can't. But in most developed countries, you can make fun of a public figure. You lose your privileges if you want to be public.
How about in the Middle East?
I don't know.
Like famous people, not like politics and stuff.
I will find out. I think you can.
Because I'm seeing a lot of people getting sued, like because they insult a famous guy or something, or they.
Well, I mean, you might get sued, but that's just because they're going to threaten you with money. I mean, President Trump was sued over 1,000 times. Like rich people who have no ethics, they just sue anybody. So of course, if you insulted me, I might sue you. But if you know a little bit about the law, you would know that I'm going to lose this case. But most people are terrified of being sued. And so they'll just settle. Being sued is really scary for people. Okay, so, sorry?
I'm saying especially in the States.
Well, I mean, everywhere. It's really scary to be sued. It's so out of your control. And law, if you haven't studied law, law is so overwhelming. If you've never studied law and you just try to pick up a law book, reading that language is just insane. It's so overwhelming. There's so much information. You don't begin to know how do you write a legal letter? How do you use these cases? And lawyers just make it even worse. So, the last thing we'll say today, torts is a really big subject. Here's what you actually need to know. And we'll stop there for today, but here's where we're going to start next time. We're going to talk about what are torts, and then we're going to get into the big tort that you need to know this semester, which is, the tort of negligence. That's one kind of tort. Just like battery or assault or false imprisonment or NIED. These are all kinds of court cases. Negligence is one kind of court case, and you need to understand that. So we'll explain what negligence is. We'll talk about how do you defend yourself, what remedies can you get, and then we'll talk about two other issues that are very important, which is vicarious liability and res ipsa loquitur. So that's what we'll do in our next class. What I would like you to do for your homework, you have pretty much three things. One, you got to watch the video. So the videos are now on Blackboard. There's a link to them. They're on YouTube. Watch those torts videos. Okay, I know it's a lot, but this is your midterm stuff. Number two, there's this quiz, the week number 2 quiz. So answer those questions. And that stuff is not about torts. That's about the introduction to the law stuff we did. So that you don't have to answer. You can wait until next class if you want. It's not due until Wednesday, September 30th. So 15 days from now, you have plenty of time. Number 3, the homework, which is look up those 3 or 4 cases, watch a YouTube video or a Wikipedia video. That's what I want you to do this week. If you want to get ahead, watch those videos about the coursework. You don't have to yet. I'm going to introduce your coursework next week. But if you want to get ahead and you have time, then watch those videos. Any questions?
Sir, the deadline for the quiz is like is this Wednesday, right?
For quiz number 1, the deadline is midnight on Wednesday.
Midnight Shanghai time.
Yes. You do not have to write long answers. I don't need paragraphs. Usually, I really barely even give notes. It's really, you know, if there's 5 questions, each question is 20 points, and usually it's like 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 100. So I'm not expecting a lot, but if you give me nothing for each question you don't answer, you lose 20 points. So it's not worth it to not do this quiz. It's such an easy piece of your grade. Jordan.
Sir, I sent my homework before the quiz, but can I resend it again?
Yes, I've set it up so you can have unlimited times you can send it.
Okay.
I will grade whatever the most recent one is.
Okay, thank you.
You know, so don't write 2 words. You know, what is civil law? What is common law? If you just write civil law equals government law, common law equals court case, I'll give you like a 15 out of 20. You know, I'm definitely not grading hard, but like you could just write a full sentence. Like civil law is a government-made law. I'll give you full points for that. Just write sentences. Any other questions? No? Okay, the only other thing I'll say, and I will say this at the beginning of the semester, if you are overwhelmed, if you're getting stressed out, if you're getting unhappy, if you're getting depressed, if it's just too much work, please let me know. You know, send me a WeChat privately. I understand that dealing with all this online Zoom stuff can be very stressful. And if you're feeling like this is just killing me, I can't watch the videos, we'll find a way around that, you know? My job is to make sure on the one hand you learn stuff and on the other hand you pass. My job is not to make this super difficult and stressful and anything like that. So as long as we find a balance, you know, if you guys are finding the videos too heavy, then we'll work on that. We'll make groups. We'll have different people in the groups watch different things and do presentations. We'll find ways around it. Cool. All right. Well, then I will see you guys next week.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Have a great week. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Oh, one last thing that I did in the other class that I'd like to do in this class too, which is I think it's beneficial. For me right now, I'm going to transfer hosting powers. Let's say I just give them to Nicola. And I'm doing this for a reason. I'll explain why in a second. How do I do this? Okay, so Nicola, where are you? Here you are. Nicola is now the host of this meeting. And the reason I'm doing that is I would like to be able to leave the meeting, but not just immediately, suddenly shut off the screen for all of you. If you guys want to talk about what a jerk I am or how terrible this semester is or how great things are, like if you want to have a little bit of time to just be like, oh my God, what the hell was that? Fine, go ahead. I don't want to leave and just have the screen suddenly go black. Okay, so you guys stay. Nicola's in charge. Nicola, just whenever you leave, the meeting ends, but whatever. Okay, I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.